Welcome to Against the Tide, the podcast where extraordinary social changemakers share their stories and wisdom. More than a podcast, Against the Tide is a celebration of courageous women who defy expectation to create lasting impact by daring to forge their own paths. We'll dive deep into powerful themes such as embracing discomfort for transformative change, how your past needn't determine your future, and how breaking free from societal labels unlocks your true potential. Join me, Jo Metcalf, to hear stories of incredible women who, by swimming against the tide, prove that extraordinary things can happen. Ready to be inspired? This episode features Fozia Naseem, a partnership manager at GiveBradford. I'm delighted to introduce Fozia Naseem, a remarkable individual who is using her trauma as a powerful force for good. Fozia works in philanthropy, inspiring a culture of giving across Bradford through her role at GiveBradford. As a partnership manager, she excels at listening, learning and connecting people, using her exceptional skills to build trust and navigate challenging conversations about racism and the sense of belonging in Bradford. Drawing from her own experiences with therapy, Fozia has found strength in sport and has turned adversity into action by empowering young women and girls in Bradford through cycling. Drawing from her own experiences with therapy, Fozia has found strength in sport and has turned adversity into action by empowering young women and girls in Bradford through cycling. Her initiatives not only build confidence but also challenge cultural norms. Join us as we dive into how a lifetime of swimming against the tide can lead to both personal and societal change. This vulnerable and heartfelt discussion aims to inspire those who may be feeling hopeless, offering hope and motivation through Fozia's incredible journey. Please be aware that this episode touches on gender-based violence and sexual abuse. It may be triggering for some. Welcome, Foz. We met a couple of years ago through your work in philanthropy, and I'm super excited to have you in the podcast today. So thank you very much for joining us. So we're going to start with a little bit about your early life and influence. So you were the firstborn daughter and first generation of your family to grow up in Bradford. Can you tell me a little bit about your early years?
So being the firstborn, mum and dad came over from Pakistan, and because my brothers, I've got two elder brothers, and then I was the first girl. So with my parents, obviously they're going to want to raise you like they would do in Pakistan. So it's dress like this, act like this. But then we moved from the middle of Bradford because we used to live in Manningham. I think when I was about 3, we moved into an area, so we moved into Wyke, and that's predominantly white community. There was no Asians in that area. So I was going into the schools in Kirklees. So it was just really difficult for me to feel that I belonged or fit anywhere, because being raised where I was by my parents and then going to school and being different at school as well. So there was racism to start with, and then on top of that, you looked different or you dressed different. And then at home, just growing up, as I got to about, I think, 5 or 6, there was sexual abuse. I was a victim of sexual abuse, and that was predominantly from the Muslim community. So for me, it was a case of, I don't want to be a Muslim, but I can't be, I don't belong in the white community either. So for me, from a very young age, I felt like I didn't belong anywhere. And the only place I ever felt a sense of belonging was when I was on my bike in the woods. But obviously, again, being a Muslim girl, we weren't allowed to ride bikes. It wasn't the done thing. It was my brother that had a bike. And I just one day jumped on his, I couldn't even ride. I don't even know what I was thinking. I jumped on his bike, went down the hill, didn't even have to pedal. And that's where the journey on the bike started for me. And it's what I used to use to escape. And then kind of trying to process things that were going on to see, it was just to stabilize my emotions, really. So then as I got older, I became really rebellious because I was angry with what was happening. And then never feeling that I felt a part of my family because I was the odd one out. I was going out, I was drinking, I was mixing with the wrong people and stuff like that. And then I think it was about when I was 15 that I'd had enough. And one of the abusers was in the house next door. And then I said to, they always used to send me to his house to babysit the children. And that day, I just stood down and said, right, I'm not doing it anymore. I don't want to go there to babysit. And my brother had worked out, because I just said things happen when I go. But because obviously my brother's born here, he was more savvy to what was probably happening. Got really angry and was going to go next door to fight and argue. But my mum stopped him and just said, just look at your sister, and do you not think that people are going to say that she's asked for that? And then my brother stopped in his tracks. And that's when I realised I was literally on my own. There was no one that I could talk to. And then just had to navigate my own emotions by myself on a bike. So yeah, I've always had this thing that I don't belong anywhere. And it's lasted probably most of my life, other than the woods, when I'm hugging the trees and I'm okay.
And talking to your plants, I know you do like doing that. Thank you for sharing that. You've obviously had some challenging times. We'll come on to your bike and dig into that a little bit more, because that's obviously played a role. And we'll get to your experience of therapy, because I know you've gone through some therapy. But first, can you tell me how cycling helped you in your teen years?
It was just, I think, that freedom. It was just, I think it's just when you're on a bike and you're riding, there's nothing else exists. It's a bit like any hobbies, for example, it's like meditation. You're only focused on that one act in that moment. And it kind of disconnects you from your stuff, but then it gives you a different perspective to look at it. So you're looking at solutions, you're looking at the ways that you can help yourself through it. So although I was quite young, I was quite tuned in to myself. So it just made me a lot stronger to be able to disconnect and not get bogged down with the trauma. But yeah, it could have been any sport. I mean, funnily enough, I didn't even like sports at school. I never did any of them. But the bike was just something that was where I felt I could escape.
Thank you for sharing that. You've had various types of therapy over the years, and you've said that neuro-linguistic programming, NLP, was hugely beneficial, but you've described it as like giving birth. Please tell me more.
Yeah. So with obviously everything that I went through, I also went through a couple of marriages where there was a lot of domestic violence. And I think I was in my mid-30s. I'd had 4 children by that point, 2 to one marriage and 2 to the other. And it got quite bad with the second divorce, because he was sending people to threaten rape and attack me. They came to my house. So I had to have panic alarms, not only in the house, but also on me, because I used to travel to work. So, and then I'd have to have a chaperone from the car park to the to the office, and then back to the car, and then and it got really bad to the point I felt imprisoned. And that was the time when I thought the only way out was to end it all. And then it was not just to end it all for myself, but then I thought, if I go, where the kid's going to go? And I knew the type of characters my ex-husbands were. So I thought, I'm not having my children split. I'm not having any of them raised by those. So then I planned it in the sense that it was going to be me and the kids. But as I planned it, I also saw it from a different perspective and thought, right, okay, I need help. This is just stupid what I'm thinking. And that was my first step towards therapy. So I think it was about, in my mid-30s. Then I went to the doctors and then they referred me to CBT. And then CBT, it was, well, the good point of that was it was the first time I actually spoke about my abuse. And but the problem was that you had to talk about everything you went through. So I had to relive it. So I was reassociated with all the trauma. And as hard as it was to go through it all again, because that literally is your body's just reliving it all. The good thing was I was saying it out loud and then I was hearing me say it. And then there was just small comments like when they'd say, but that this is normal for you to feel that way. It's not your fault and things like that. And I did that for a while. It did build my confidence. I got out of that stuck state of thinking about I need to end it. I need to just build myself. Then I did a lot of self-help. So it was Deepak Chopra and Tony Robbins that I used to listen to and do some of the processes they taught for about, I think it was almost 10 years. And then I wanted to help. It drove me to want to help other women and girls because I knew how isolated I was and there was no support and it was a taboo subject. You just didn't talk about it. So, and I was working towards that. And then someone said to me that you speak like an NLP practitioner. And I just said, what's one of those? I've got a clue. And it was because I was using positive language. And it was more about different perspectives rather than saying, I can't do this. It is, I'll work out how I'm going to do it. And it was one of my friends, knowing about my past, recommended a trainer in Northallerton, Lisa from Awaken Consulting. And she said that she would be the perfect tutor to train me to become a practitioner. So I went on that journey to learn about what it was about and everything, and to see if that would be something that I could then use as a qualification to support other women and girls. So neuro-linguistic programming is about the language that you use, and it's the way I kind of describe it to people is like you've got a gremlin in your head, and then if you say, "I can't do this," it'll decide, "Okay, she can't do it, so I'm just going to sit here and not even look for a resource." And then if you say, "I'll work it out," then it will go down into your subconscious, look at the tools that you have, the resources that you've got down there, and then give you those to then work towards a solution. So to be a good practitioner, you need to deal with your own trauma. So I did a lot of arguing during that time, and that I've dealt with my stuff. I don't know why I still feel like something's there. But what I'd basically done is packaged it and stored it in a safe box down somewhere. And then on the top, I was positive. So it was just like I always call it as a plaster on a problem, rather than dealing with the core issues. So it was during the training that the tutor realised that I had some deep trauma. So it was day 4 that I argued all the way to Northallerton. I've dealt with my stuff. There's nothing wrong with me. I'm just going to go there. I'm just going to do this. And then as I walked in, I thought, right, I'll just have 10 minutes with Lisa and just tell her how I'm feeling today. And as soon as I walked in, she'd already picked up something was not quite right. And then I just said, Lisa, can we have 10 minutes? And then she set everybody on task and took me upstairs. And so I'll describe the way it works because then I think you get more of a context of it. As I went upstairs, we were talking and Lisa were posing certain questions. And as she questioned, I don't even remember what the questions were. I just remember crying a lot. And it's like when you cry that much, you go to a point where you bring yourself back down because you know you've gone too far. So NLP takes you to that tipping point because that's where your answers lie, but you bring yourself back because you don't want to deal with stuff. So she took me to that point and then asked me how old I was. And then, I looked at it and thought, what do you mean how old I am? So I'm dipping into conscious in answering her, but subconsciously she knew something was happening. And she said, how old are you? And I said, how old are you? The child that's crying, how old are you? And I said, 5. She said, right, we'll take that 5-year-old girl out and sit her down on the floor. And I thought, what? But she goes, just do it. And then I did. And then soon as I did that, there was a sense of calm. So all of that crying went, sat that girl down and couldn't understand what was going on. And she said, let's have a 5-minute break and we'll come back. So there's a bit of anxiety as well because I'm thinking, because I didn't understand what was happening. And then we returned back after 5 minutes, and then she was asking me, what is it that girl needs? And I said, well, she's dirty, and she's not accepted by society. And she goes, right, okay then. So when you're dirty, what do you do? And I thought, well, you can't clean that. And she said, no, when she's dirty, when you're dirty, what do you do? And I said, wash. And she said, right, so wash her. So, and you kind of do it in your imagination. Then I washed her, and then what else did she need? And it was love and reassurance that everything's going to be okay. And then she said to bring her back into my lap and take her in, and then grow into the woman that I am now. So I did that. So the way it is you don't with NLP, you don't reconnect to the actual actions that happened. It's the context, not the content. So for me, dirty meant obviously she's been abused. You can't clean that, but dirty is a word. So dirt you can wash. So you can wash the dirt and make it clean again. So it's just your brain will still do the same process and heal that, although it is a different type of dirty, if you know what I mean. So we did that, and after that, I felt a complete sense of calm. And then there was loads of other processes in that training. So once you've done that, your neurons realign. So this pathway that you have to a certain belief that you have about yourself, and anger that's probably related to it. So the outside behavior of trauma is different things like phobias, anger in certain situations, because when you're angry, you're not angry at that one moment that's happening then. It's anger that's attached to everything else at the back, and it comes up in that current moment like a pressure cooker effect. And that's where that birth, childbirth was like. It was so awful to the feelings that you have, but it's nothing short of a miracle when you get to the end of the process, because the sense of calm that you have at the end, that you've actually let go of something that was deep embedded, is, it was just outstanding for me. And that's why I described it as, it's like giving birth. It is painful, but at the end, it's all worth it in moving forward with your life then.
Thank you for sharing that. You talked about that you when you were getting into NLP, you were able to see things from a different perspective. What was there a tipping point or something that, because there's obviously quite a lot of resilience that you've got within you, and what's that driver? Are you able to explain that in any way?
Driver for me, with the resilience, I don't know, that sounds a bit stupid if I say this now out loud. I always feel like I've been made for better things. Because I was told I was thick and stupid, that I was just a waste of a life and stuff like that. But I don't know what it is inside. I always felt I'm here for a reason, and it's an important one, and I will navigate my life to find it myself. And I don't know what the driver was, but I know when I was doing the NLP, it was my children. I was on my own with the kids, so I knew that I was there. I was going to be the role model. And then I had to deal with my stuff to let them know that they can get through anything in life if they put their mind to it. So in that time, I think it will probably be the kids that drove me to do it. But in my younger years, there was something there. I just don't know what it was or where it came from, but it was there.
Thank goodness you saw that.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So we're going to now move into sort of getting upstream, and you then combined your passion for cycling with your experience with NLP, didn't you? Tell us about Hop On, because that sounds fantastic.
Yeah, so I did so I became I qualified as an NLP practitioner, and then it was after that I decided that, right, okay, now I'm going to do therapy with women and girls. So I was doing small, pockets of therapy with people. And then it was when my cousin told me that there was a job going as a cycling instructor. And I just thought, what, people actually pay you to do that? I said, I don't understand. And then I went, but I thought, you know what? I'll just go for the interview and just see what happens. And basically it was teaching bikeability in school. So teaching young children to ride bikes, and then through the process of actually then riding on the roads. So I got the job and got qualified. And then it was when I was working in schools, teaching the children. A lot of the schools that I was going to were predominantly Asian children. And what happened was Asian women would see me there teaching the kids. And then they'd approach me and said that if I would teach them as well. So because I built a relationship with Cycling UK and British Cycling at that time, there was like one-to-one cycling that we'd do. And then I asked if I could do a group of women, so I had to find somewhere local. And there was a centre in Batley, Al Hikmah, that had some women that wanted to learn as well. So we got a group together, and we started training in Al Hikmah Centre in the hall, because they all said they never want to go outside and ride bikes. Because again, these were ladies that were wearing hijabs and niqabs, didn't feel comfortable out in the public. So we teach them in this huge hall, and that's when I think the penny dropped, because what would happen is some of these ladies were on the bikes, they had everything, they had the balance, all of it, and then it was just little small things that you'd notice, because in NLP you're taught to look at people's body language, because the body's speaking more than the words. And then I used to just kind of look at the body and think, right, okay, she's pedaling backwards. She knows the pedals are meant to go forward. Then I'd use the language of, what's holding you back? What's taking you backwards? And then they'd say, what do you mean? I says, well, your feet are moving back. You know the pedals go forward. So what is it you're saying to yourself when you're doing that? She goes, I'm not saying anything. I says, just tune in. And then they'd start crying. And then I realised, okay, I've hit a nerve. There's something going on psychologically that's stopping them. Then we take them off the bike, have a chat, find out what the barriers were, what the issues were with them, and then work through them. We'd either go for a walk or just do a one-to-one. Then we'd get them back on the bike, and then they'd get on the bike, and then within moments they'd be riding. And then that's when I thought, wow, okay, there's a connection from psychology to the bike, and it's not actually about the bike, it's what it was representing is that moving forward. And that's where the idea of Hop On was born, because obviously I used it for my mental health, and then it just all kind of started slotting together of how it worked for me and how it's working for other women as well. And for me, that was brilliant, because I mean, it's not everybody that needs therapy that's on a bike, but it's just one of the things that you can build a relationship with people with. Because in therapy, for sometimes you can take you a couple of years to build rapport with a client before you actually get to the deeper stuff, and that's a lot of money for someone to pay that can't afford it. Which is why you hear some really tragic stories about women taking their own lives because they can't afford that type of therapy. So I set up Hop On along with a couple of my friends. All three of us set it up together with the view that in that cycling activities, we'll build a relationship with women and girls. And then if there was stuff happening at home or they wanted to share anything, that they were open enough to share it with them and we could deal with it, rather than in sports, it can bring up a lot of people's stuff. And then you have to refer them to someone else to go get help. But this way, the whole package was there. So Hop On was born from there, and it got quite big really quickly. So yeah, we just branched out in different areas of Bradford, but it was a huge success. And it's been brilliant because we do closed group with women, we do social rides, and what we found is whatever barriers that they had before they started, once they'd overcome the barriers, it weren't just on the bike, it kind of mirrored across to their personal lives. So they were more confident in their homes, had a voice, started looking at the diets of their families and accepted that they were actually the leaders in that household and it weren't the men. And it just built better families. So yeah, that was brilliant.
So it's had a ripple effect across communities. And is it still running?
Yes, it's still there. It's still
Fantastic,
running. Yeah. Yeah, it just keeps growing.
Fantastic. No, that's brilliant. So it was Hop On that led you to GiveBradford, wasn't it? What drew you to apply for the GiveBradford role?
Well, with Hop On, because we set it up as a community organisation, obviously all women, and we got, like I said, really big really quickly on pockets of cash. We didn't have a lot of money. We were just driven to create change in our communities. And we faced a few challenges with another organisation, and because we were just self-made, I didn't know what was available out there. So I was looking for work and I saw this vacancy come up. And when it came up, I just thought, you know what, let me just try it and let's see what happens. So it was just one of those, because it was just a CV and a covering letter. I thought it's easy enough, I can just try it. And then got the job. It was all very quick. And the thing that appealed to me about it was helping community organisations, because we went through a lot of things that were really unfair. I wasn't aware of anything that was available out there to support us as we were growing, but it was all there when they were throwing us out. All these people came out of the woodwork and I thought, who are these people? And then that's when I realised there's resources out there that could have supported us in our growth, but I never knew they existed. And with GiveBradford, that's the thing that you kind of doing to support other community groups, is letting them know what support is available, what support they need to be resilient and sustain their organisations. And being a community organisation, I just felt we didn't have a voice in the spaces that needed our voices. We weren't taken seriously, and it was an opportunity for me to have a voice for all the community organisations that are working really hard on just small amounts of money but making a huge difference. And then you see the unfair, as an community organisation, you always see the usual suspects that always get the grants, and then they've got the capacity because they keep getting the money. But then you see organisations that are small that are making a bigger impact, but you just don't know about it because no one's got time to put it on social media and do all of that kind of stuff because they're so busy delivering the work that they haven't got time to promote it. So as working on the other side, it gives you good insight of what is needed for community organisations because you've been there and you know what the barriers are. And then as funders, you can then help support those communities to kind of level the playing field a little bit and get rid of the usual suspects and really help the small grassroots groups.
So you talked in there about some groups and some parts of communities not having a voice. How can others help bring those voices forward?
It's just with other funders, I think you need to be a bit relatable. There needs to be more diversity in organisations. It is really important, and that's when the penny dropped when I went into GiveBradford, is because I spent most of my life thinking I have to fit in somewhere, and growing up, you try and adjust yourself to fit in somewhere. And then being at GiveBradford, I soon realised it's not about fitting in, it's about the knowledge you bring to an organisation, and the input that you give can make an organisation stronger. But you don't see yourself like that normally. But here, that's what I felt. And it's then sharing that with other groups. Like we have a community advisory group. Again, this is made up of like 13 organisations spread around the Bradford district, different sizes, different reach, different makeup of leadership. And anything that we do, we kind of consult with them. This is what we're thinking. What do you think? What's it like on the grassroots level or with your communities? And they feed in to the way we move forward. So their voices are within our strategy, with anything, with our grants processes, evaluation, all of it. They feed into all of that. And I think giving them, it's like, again, there's no power dynamics. Everybody's equal in the room, and they feel that then they've got a voice. And I think that's when you're building confidence of groups, that there's a funder that's listening. And then as a funder, you've got other funders out there, so they will, I mean, I've had other funders pick my brain about how they can be more approachable. What are the barriers for certain organisations, certain communities? Can you help us? Because what happens is, if you don't have diversity in your organisation, when you go out there, everybody's nervous to ask certain questions, because things change that often that you don't know what words you can use and what's going to offend a community that you're not, that you don't know about. So it's easy for them to come to me because they know I'm an open book. I don't take offence. I appreciate that they're exploring and asking questions to actually be more equal with the grant distribution.
You've been at GiveBradford for 2 years now. Tell us how it's going.
Amazing. I have to say, from the time that I started to where I am now, I'm a completely different person. It's built my confidence, again, because I'd stopped trying to fit in. And the other thing is, as an organisation, they recognise as well that there might be some barriers that you still have in certain gatherings and stuff. I mean, I've learned a lot about myself having been in this role, because I've been in certain spaces where I've froze, and I'm normally quite sociable and can, happily talk, but certain spaces I was not comfortable, but I felt safe enough to discuss that and say, right, I'm not okay, because like there was one event where I had to go to this golf club event. I was on my own, no diversity in the room, and I was supposed to network, and I just thought, no, I'm not going to talk to anyone, and I just froze. And it was when a couple people came in to do a display, and the lady was one of them was Asian, and I found myself make a beeline for them, and then started chatting. So even though I do stuff, I observe myself doing it. So then I asked myself, why did I just do that? And that's when I realized, okay, something's going on when I'm in these spaces. And I can discuss it with the team because I've always felt comfortable. And then it was a case of looking at development. Let's see what I need to work through that and explore what that is. So they invest They invested in me. And I did some coaching, and it was when the coach had said, the racism is probably playing off. So that's the trauma in itself. And I went, is it? I says, I thought that was just normal. And then she said, Foz, that's actually not normal. And that's when I realized, oh my God, yeah, you're right. But I've always thought it falls in the normal category. And then that's when, because she'd opened up that learning for me, because I was aware of it, I'm able to work through that. It still comes up on occasions where I feel a little bit uncomfortable, but I'm aware of what I'm doing. So as an organisation, I thought it was great to see someone recognise someone needing support, that more so than your counterparts that might not be of colour, that might not have experienced racism, and recognising how you can again bring someone up to the same kind of level that they can perform equally with their counterparts. So yeah, I've always felt really valued and respected at GiveBradford.
That's fantastic. It's great to hear. So you've mentioned power and safety as you talk about GiveBradford. How has your experience in your younger years impacted on your working life, particularly at GiveBradford?
I think growing up, I felt powerless. And yeah, anything I said, I was thick and stupid. So you always feel you're not confident in what you feel you are. And then I think with GiveBradford, it's being recognised, having a voice, and accepting that there's growth potential there. Working at GiveBradford, because they invest in you, it made me feel like I was important enough for someone to care. I didn't have that growing up. I was always knocked down constantly. And then when someone kind of invests in you and believes in you, when you've had that voice yourself, it just builds you to feeling more powerful, because it's that thing where you go through life trying to fit in, and it isn't fitting in, it's what you're bringing to the table. And that's where that I felt, okay, I've got something. And it made me feel good about myself and made me confident that I have got something to bring to the table that nobody over there has, and I've got it. That's where where you feel that power come from.
So do you feel like you've made it?
And no, not yet. I don't know how it came about that I wanted to write, and I wanted to write about my life and use that book as an inspiration for other women and girls, because people just assume that you've had an easy life. They see where you are, and they think that, oh, you've had it easy, you haven't got a clue, Foz. And you think, well, actually I do. But I've fought through it because I believe I was made for more. And it was another question that someone had said to me, that if you had to go back and relive your life, would you do it? And I said yes, which shocked me as well. I thought, why would I want to relive that? But it was because it's made me who I am today, and I accept it, because I don't think I'd be good at what I do if I hadn't been through what I'd been through. And that's why I wanted to write a book about using what you've been through to support other people, and also the perspective of what I thought of it then to what I think of it now, and how that inspires me to make changes in the world and to other people's lives.
You said it out loud now,
Yeah.
so we need to read the book.
I haven't finished it yet. I'm only just
Fantastic. Well, you'll have to come back on and promote the book. So finally, is there anything else you would like to share with other women who might face similar pain challenges? Some words of wisdom that helped you and gave you strength?
it's it is just to be patient with yourself, and we have a choice, and it is just listening to that. Because for me, it was that there's a deeper voice right in my gut that told me that I was made for better things. Listen to that one. Because that was my driver through everything I went through. It wasn't what I was hearing. It was what I felt deep down inside that was the truth. And just talk. I think the other problem is we do not speak, and be the voice of reason and support other women through whatever you've experienced. I'm a big believer in we go through what we go through because it drives you to your life purpose. We're all made for unique reasons, and our life experience is is the reason what we're meant to be doing going forward. That's it.
You're so brave, Foz. Thank you for sharing your journey with me and our listeners. Your ability to turn your trauma into something positive is so inspiring. Hugely appreciate you coming on today.
No,
Thank you very
thank
much.
you.
Thanks for listening to Against the Tide, brought to you by Think for Wellbeing, the strategic consultancy for social change makers, with thanks to Louise Kavanagh at Purposeful Marketing and the team at Sticks and Glass. Subscribe to Against the Tide wherever you get your podcasts so you never miss an inspiring episode.